We're not selling anything. This is education. We are going to open it up for conversation. I'm just going to ask that if you raise your hand first so we can call on you so we don't have everybody jumping in all at once. This is all about you guys. We want you guys to ask questions. This is our job. We do cybersecurity for a living full time. Myself and Ernest. I'll introduce himself and let you tell him about himself in just a second. My name is Robert Trimeth. I'm the CTO for AIO Integrations. We are a company that is specifically serving IT and managed cybersecurity to the small business side. I do a lot of speaking for the Alignable Education Channel and have presented there several times. And I do a lot of other stuff nationally as well. We do a lot of stuff for education inside for charter schools, ISDs, educating parents, teachers, things like that. So we spend a lot of time educating people. But we do have a business that does managed IT services and cybersecurity. We're not here to sell that. If you guys are interested in that, please message me and I'll be happy to talk to you afterwards, but this is for your guys' benefit. I've been in business 34 years, the last 6 specializing in cybersecurity. I've done work on 2 continents for Dell, specifically in the enterprise and data field. I've done in biotech for Baylor College of Medicine. And so I'm not only just a developer and infrastructure, but I've also spent about the last 20 years helping startups and small businesses. Ernest, why don't you tell them a little about yourself? Ernest is our co-host.
Yes, my name is Ernie Kersey. I am a business and IT consultant and independent filmmaker. I've worked for companies in the IT space like Disney. I worked at Microsoft helping them with their privacy and anti-pirating, as well as tracking down and creating applications that identify hackers and what we call bad actors. I've been in the field for over 30 years. Started out in the infrastructure space, and now I consult for those that actually need the assistance. And one of the reasons I'm helping out Robert here co-hosting is I want to make sure people realize the dangers that are out there and how they can protect themselves from them. And there's some real benefits that have come out from some of the majors like Microsoft and Apple and things like that to help you defend yourself against any attacks.
Thanks, Ernest. And I really appreciate you contributing and being here. He's been here from pretty much the beginning on every single one. And neither of us get paid to do this. This is something we just do for education's sake. And we really feel a strong need. There's such a need in this. And the problem is that it's funny, as a company that offers it to companies to pay for it, and a lot of companies pay us for it, only about 65% of those companies actually use the education side of it, which is just beyond me because every junket that we go to, the FBI, Homeland, the people that are there, the big companies like Cisco, the biggest problem we face as cybersecurity experts or CIOs, CISOs, people that serve protecting information and people. Our biggest issue is training users on how to protect themselves. They are usually the biggest threat to themselves. And so, and it's so funny that most people are really not really willing to help themselves until after it's too late and they realize they've already experienced the loss. Then it's important. So we see a lot of that happening. So I'm going to show you guys or talk to you guys about some data that came out in the last week that I thought was really valuable because it specifically is about small business. This comes from one of our sources. There's about 34 sources I monitor. This one is an international source, and it is titled Cyber Extortion Victims Grow by 77% with Small Businesses, impacting 4 times more often than medium or large businesses combined. Okay, so that means that they are targeting the little guys at a lot bigger factor than the big guys. The big guys do really good at making headlines. We hear about the Sonic Automotive, their back end, the dealer management system got hit about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they just got back up, took off 15,000 dealerships that took offline. They were having to write contracts on paper again for the first time in years. We've heard about United Healthcare and MGM and Caesars and all those kind of things. Those are nice big headlines, but there is so much more that happens in and behind the background for small companies that don't make the headlines. And these are the reasons why we're having these discussions with you. So here's some facts. Over the past 12 months, 60 distinct threat actors have impacted more than 4,374 new victims just in the last 12 months. Okay. These are small businesses. Cyber extortion worldwide has grown by 75%. Mostly in English, it's 118 countries, but 75% of it is accounted in English speaking, and they're accounting the majority of that being the U.S., the U.K., and Canada. The U.S. leading that by 118% growth just in the last year. Okay, the others, that's more than the other two combined. Now, when you start looking at this, and what they're talking about is victims. These are people that actually had to pay ransoms to get their data back, people that got caught and had to actually pay for the extortion. Okay. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and what we mean by extortion. Like, about 5-6 years ago, when we started seeing ransomware emerge as a global phenomenon, it was mostly locking people out of their data. What you saw was see the screen. It's sorry, your information's been locked. Contact this and pay this ransom, and we'll give you a key that will unlock your data. And that's how they got people. Now, IT people like us got real wise to that, and we started developing better, more resilient backup systems. And now we have backup systems that are hacker resilient. The first thing hackers look to do is disable backups. There was a very interesting thing that came out from, I'm going to see if I can find this real quick because I thought this was really just absolutely crazy. Let me find this link to this article here. I think I sent it over to, nope, I didn't send it to you, Ernest, but where did I send this to? Oh, here it is. Okay, so Indonesia, the country of Indonesia, suffering from a ransomware attack and discovered it has no backups. Okay. And, of course, the government saying that's stupidity. I can't, the government officials who are responsible going, I can't believe we don't have this. I'm going to tell you something. 8 out of 10 businesses don't have a clue what the status of their backup is. Any of you people here right now, if I were to ask you if you had a backup that was good as of last night, you were 100% sure and it was in a safe place, could you say, yep, I do? For sure, 100% certain I got a backup of all my data that's critical to my business and it's in a safe place and I know it's good as of last night. You know how many businesses can say that? About 2 out of 10. That's it. And there are so many people that they can have an event happen and they have no clue what the status of their backup is until they go in and try and restore it and realize that their backup hasn't been working for months. And this, I can tell you, as an IT person who brings on new clients, a lot of our new clients that come into us are people that have been hit by these kind of attacks and are looking at companies like us to restore it, to get them clean again, to get them back up and running. And I can tell you that it's a catastrophe. How many owners have no clue as to really what's going on with their infrastructure, the things that drive their business? As an owner, a partner, anybody who's financially responsible for the things within your business, you need to know. I mean, without a doubt, that your information is safe, that your information is backed up, that it's resilient, that it is in a place where hackers can't get to, and that if something happened to you tomorrow or this data disappeared, you can put it back quickly, recover from it quickly. So as we were talking about how this was evolving, that was the old school. Well, as people stopped paying for that because they realized they had better backup systems, they said, we're not going to pay, we're just going to go put it back, have our IT people put it back. Well, now hackers get into the system and they don't make you aware they're there. They look for ways to hurt you. They find out where your backups are, disable them, kill them, delete them. They look for your databases. They look for your passwords. They look for anything that can hurt you in a way. Client data. The client data, your client's data is valuable to them for a lot of reasons. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. And it doesn't matter if you're a realtor, if you're a lawyer, if you are in any kind of a business that is impacted by PPI or HIPAA or any kind of compliance laws, then you have both liability and third-party liability that can arise as of a breach. Okay, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So what happens is they copy this data off, and now they have copies of your customer data. So now they have a double-edged sword. If you choose not to pay because you have a good backup and you can just simply restore it and get them kicked out, then that's fine. But now they have a copy of your data. Now they're threatening to release that data and go after your customers or sell it. Now this becomes a compliance violation. By becoming a compliance violation and a liability issue, now you've got a whole different gamut of things that can affect you. Liability from the general people, you got third-party liability from anything that arises. Let's say that information that was leaked by you, in other words, that was compromised out of that hack from you, and they get into do something to that other person, you now have third-party liability to that hack and can be held responsible for the hack in general, because if your hack hadn't have happened, their hack wouldn't have happened. So now you got a whole nother chain of financial responsibility behind it. And believe me, the numbers can add up huge. And if you are in a compliance governed, like California has compliance laws that are separate than the federal, so does New York and Texas and several others. So not only do you have the local state stuff, but you have federal guidelines for HIPAA and PPI that you have to follow. And if any of that is violated, that can be up to $5,000 per violation. And these are like taxes and payroll taxes. You don't get out of them by claiming bankruptcy. You are, whoever the responsible or managing partner is for the business is responsible for those fees. So this can financially devastate a business owner or a partner. So you have to be aware of what your responsibilities are compliance wise. You have to understand what your risk is, and you can't wait till it's too late. This is a problem that waiting till you've been compromised is a mess to fix. In our industry, we have a saying, it's a lot harder to fix the airplane after it's crashed. When it's on the ground in pieces, it pretty much is too late to fix it. It's too late to do anything to it. By that time, the damage is done. So now you're on cleanup duty. Now, and that's a whole different ball game and it's very expensive. The average remediation cost right now for a breach is over $1 million. That's a national average in the US. It's over $1 million for the first time ever. So those of you who are unaware of, you're in some kind of a business that deals with other people's information that you store in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter if you store it locally. Like if you're a realtor and you're dealing with contracts and you're dealing with closing papers and things like that, you have compliance issues. If you run a brokerage, if you run a bookkeeping company, a tax company, if you run an automotive shop, anything that stores their personal information or payment information, it is all susceptible to different types of compliance laws. And if that stuff gets stolen, can lead you into a financial downfall. Most businesses that get breached, 82% of them don't survive. They end up having to reestablish as something else, or they just go out of business altogether. Obviously, the big ones are able to recoup that. They have insurance and other things, but the insurance companies are getting smarter. There are now a lot of exceptions that prevent them from having to pay out. And I'll give you a good example. The United Healthcare industry thing that just happened, where they're changed their United Healthcare, the back end provider that handled all their prescriptions and payments and claims to other doctors and things like that. That's what got hacked. And they've traced it down to one individual that was not using multi-factor authentication. Well, in their insurance policies, and most of them that buy cyber insurance, one of the things that is a requirement is that every employee is using multi-factor authentication on everything. They can use this as a reason to not pay the claim. And that means the financial liability lands on the company 100%. The insurance companies will not pay out. If it proves to be from a state actor that is or backed or affiliated with the state actor, like the app groups, REvil, most of the big ones that are out there, these companies are either sponsored or in part of either China, Russia, North Korea, We're seeing a lot of stuff out of the Philippines, India. I mean, it's everywhere. Pakistan. There's a lot of countries, but if they are known affiliate actors with those groups or with affiliate with a country, then they will consider that an act of terror and won't pay either. So there's a lot of exceptions for cyber insurance that do not pay out, and a lot of rules regarding that. Cybersecurity awareness training is now required of all people that are inside of a company, and if you can't prove they went through it, they can use that as a reason not to pay. So very important to start taking it upon yourselves to learn how to recognize threats, educate yourself, to educate your employees that represent and work in your business and train them up, teach them how to recognize threats because they are your front line. To not to use a football analogy, but if that offensive line that protects your quarterback, man, if you don't teach them how to do their job right, you think that quarterback is going to be protected from very much? You think that defense is just going to run right through them and sack them every time? And that's what your employees are. Your employees are your frontline defense to threat actors. And if you train them on how to recognize those things, and it becomes habit for them because they've been trained to recognize phishing email. They've been trained to understand what clickbait looks like. They've been trained to understand what to do if something takes over their screen and how to get out of it without clicking into something they shouldn't. By training them and teaching them those things, you have now improved or decreased the risk and improved your probability of getting through or even being attacked in the first place. So I'm gonna, Ernest, do you have anything you want to contribute to that before we get started and open up for some questions?
Yeah, I wanted to share. Like I said, I have broad experience across industries. When I was consulting and working for insurance companies, if you are any kind of broker for any kind of insurance, whether it's medical or life or anything, you better have off-site copies of your data. When they come in to audit you and they find out that you haven't taken your nightly backups and made a copy of them and taken them off site, because they don't even care about the cybersecurity side. They care about the disaster recovery side. So if you lose your drives and you have people's personal information and you have premiums and payment information that's related to policies and it's gone, you have more problems than you could possibly think of. Not that it can't be reconstructed, but it'll take a lot of time because you have the different carriers and everyone that will have to contribute information. But you, as the sole responsible entity, first of all, you'll lose your licenses in the state and any other states that you have. They'll automatically remove and take away your licenses for you failing to provide that. Another thing I wanted to share when we talk about backups, it just came out last month that Microsoft is automatically backing up 365. So if you have a 365 account and you use that and you keep, data in OneDrive, it's backed up. It didn't go into retention policy, so I don't know if it's more than like 90 days or
You
6
should
months worth of retention.
you should still be using some kind of a backup solution that you can manage. Like we sell a product that does that, backs it up natively with all the email, it's cloud to cloud backup. But if you ever lose something, like something is deleted, you need to get it back and it goes beyond detention policy. Microsoft has clear disclaimers that says, sorry, your data is your own. We're not responsible for it. And I know because I've been
Yeah,
down
they
that
do.
road
They
before.
they they do have that, but like I said, I was surprised because they are retaining that now, and I think they're retaining it now because their executives got hacked, so they realize that they have some responsibility to the consumer and
It,
to
it's
businesses because a
it's
lot
not
of
been
that
all though.
365.
I have one of our partners in our firm. So we have several partners in our firm that own other businesses, and one of them owns a business where he was paying another company to manage their Azure instance, the company that developed their solution. When he tried to move from them and move from Azure into another platform, these people inadvertently canceled his entire office. His Office 365 was tied into his Azure, and they killed it, effectively killing his entire email tenant. He's been working for
Wow.
3 weeks to try and get it back. Oh yeah, I didn't even know how they did this. This is uncalled. I mean, that's just so unprofessional.
Well, no, Microsoft will. They will. I mean, only time. I mean, like I said, I was involved heavily in their security. So if you become identified as a trade actor, right? So like, when they decide that you're no longer allowed to trade with Russia, they automatically dump everything that shows a Russian orientation. So the
Okay.
email address, right? So if it's anything like that, in related relation to that as well, I don't know if you saw, but now Kaspersky, the virus software,
Yeah. Kaspersky. Yeah.
is is considered a state threat.
Yep.
So
In
the
fact,
U.S. government, yeah,
actually, they want it removed off all systems by, I think it's end of August is what it
yeah,
was.
it is, yeah.
And
But keep in mind, if you're insured,
yeah, well, and let me tell you why that is. A lot of people don't understand that. Like, how they're an antivirus company? Why did that happen? Well, what they discovered is that there are certain entities within Kaspersky, because it is a Russian company, that are affiliated with this what is it? It's I'm thinking China CCPD, but it's basically the Soviet cybersecurity side. And what happened is cybersecurity software gives you unprivileged or basically gives you access to the entire operating system. What they were doing is taking tools that were meant to look for bad software or bad threat actors software, stuff that was bad for the system. And they found that these operatives or people within the space, they were allowing the government to use those tools that were on the installed machines to actually start exploring classified machines, or people, they were going in and taking license to actually use the tools to go after documents or things they shouldn't have been doing. Um, that's something you don't do. That's totally a policy, a personal privacy violation. So they were basically going through people's computers and had proof that they were abusing the tools of the trade, the built-in software, and were actually going after people's personal data and company data. And it was done mostly in companies, and that's why it was discovered by experts within those companies, and they just said, nope, we're not having any of that. There was no, first they did it at the government level, and now they did it, period. They've just decided that it is not going to be in our country anymore. That it's a risk to everything. So
well, and it goes beyond our country because the thing is, if you're a contractor with somebody in France or things like that, and they're using it, you are basically, under the same threat.
yep.
So it's more broad than just the U.S. A lot of people don't realize that. But
Mhm.
if you're dealing with Lloyd's of London and they're using it, you, you're just as liable. So yeah, and so I mean, that's what's going on there. The question I wanted to ask everybody is anyone still using a root user or an admin user to access any systems?
What I mean by that is,
Okay.
does your user account have full access to everything, or is it a limited use?
Well, it's fine that they have a limited use, or you can have full user. One of the big things that's coming in, there's a lot of backdoor happening, and they say they don't know how it's happening. But the thing is, root, admin, and then on some systems, there's a sysid and things like that. The hackers know that root exists, they know admin exists. And if they can access it outside, like when I worked at different organizations, you could not access root from outside the data center. You had to be in the data center. The only way you could was if you remoted in with your exclusive ID and then switched over to root. So some commands have to
Oh,
be
I know
run
what
by
you're
root.
talking about. You're talking
Yeah.
about the default you're talking about the
Yep.
default administrator accounts and root accounts that come with machines. And
Right.
and that goes across the board. It isn't just machines, it's even websites. Like if you have a WordPress site, the default
Yep.
the default login for WordPress is admin. I
Yep.
never keep that. And so, yeah, and a lot of people don't realize they can change it and make it whatever you want. And that's what you want to do. You don't want to use de facto standards, because you got to realize there's two things they have to guess when they're hacking. They have to guess a user account, and they have to use a password. So it's very good practice to use non-standard on both. Not just your user account, your passwords, but your user account. If it has administrative authority, you shouldn't be using anything like admin or administrator or root or anything that implies you're a manager or that you have administrative authority over anything to do with that machine, because those are the first accounts they try to hack by default. And those are the
Yep.
very first ones they go after.
Right. And the other thing is, if you have contractors that are accessing, never give them the admin or the root. Make sure that you create a limited time access user ID for any contractor to come into your system. And
Yep.
make sure you know that ID, because that's what's going to be logged for them going in and what they touch. So
Well,
that if you need to produce that for an insurance company,
so
you've got it.
Ernest is talking about, like, for instance, as an IT company, and we manage, business IT systems. We don't use the administrator account. Okay, we don't. The very first thing we do is we will go in when we first get in, and we will actually ask them to create an account for us with a temporary password and with administrator privilege. And we will go into that account and then give ourselves the permission we need, but it is our account, and that is the account we use. And the reason why we do that is because there's accountability. At that time, we never know what the administrator password is. If somebody changes something in with the administrator password, if something happens with that, and we are it's tracked that account, we have culpability. We can go back and say, well, we don't have that. We have our own account with admin privileges we use, and we don't use that account. There's reasons for that, and it's for accountability. Like, for instance, if we have an owner within a company, and they want read, write, delete privileges to everything. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that that is not something a business owner needs to have for everything. And the reason is because there are retention. Ernest talked about this a minute ago. Every business has retention policies that govern them. I think it's 7 years. And basically, if you are running a business and you remove a document from your system, it has to be archived or backed up in a way that can be accessible for 7 years. If you just remove it, delete it, and you don't have accountability for it, if you are ever involved in a lawsuit affecting somebody and one of those documents is discovered to be deleted, that's purposeful destruction. It's basically it's a felony. So you basically have now committed a crime in destruction of evidence. That is something that's very serious. So when we go and set up environments for a small business, one of the first things we do is set up retention policies for documents. That means that if you go in or somebody deletes it, it doesn't really delete it. It basically moves it to a spot in which that it is archived. It is reversible on our side. It is able to be searched through eDiscovery. Same thing with emails. We use Teams drives and SharePoint drives to do that. You just set up unprivileged or fully privileged access across the board to people, because they can do themselves more harm to themselves than they even know. And that's our job. Our job is to save business owners from themselves a lot of times when it comes to IT. IT isn't what it was 20 years ago. It is a much different thing. 20 years ago, electronic documentation wasn't even a thing in courts. Now it is. Now an email is just as binding as a fax or a handwritten letter or anything else. It is just as binding as anything else. And that's why we have eDiscovery, and eDiscovery is built into Microsoft 365, and we set those parameters up for our clients all the time when we start managing them to make sure that they're meeting compliance.
It's just, it's one of those things that people think that, oh, it's not a big deal. Having worked or consulted and helped support large insurance companies, you can do this too, even as a small company. If there's information that needs to be archived, but you're not going to use it anymore, because believe it or not, the IRS has relinquished the 7-year rule. They can go back forever if they feel like it.
Can they? Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they can. And that's why a lot of companies now they have online, nearline, and archive data. Now, archive data is something you're not going to pull back unless there's litigation involved, right? You'll archive things like someone dies and you're an insurance company. You have all the policy information, all the premiums, everything that was paid out, all documents went back and forth. the death certificate, you're going to archive that. There's no reason to keep that on live storage. So you as a business owner, if you have a situation where you have information that is no longer going to be used for marketing or anything like that, you can move it to a CD-ROM. So if you wanted, depending on what your volume is, I would say for most companies, when you're looking at storage, 8 gig a year for, to do an archive is no big deal. So that's like one DVD. If you need two DVDs, take it to two DVDs. The other
I mean,
thing is you get that
even
information
external
offline.
storage like the solid states are inexpensive. I mean, you can buy a terabyte of solid state and stick it in a safe, and that's $60
Yeah,
nowadays. I mean,
yeah.
it's not terribly expensive, and you can add to it when you need to. But
Yeah, the problem with solid states is they still, even though they're not discs and they don't break down, DVDs at least have 25 years of life.
well,
The
that's
solid
true.
states, it's uncertain, right? So, you may be lucky and 25 years of solid state will work. It may not. I've had solid states that have failed on me within 3 years, 5 years.
Well, okay,
Um, yeah, and I've had
good
them
point.
corrupt too. I've never had a CD-ROM corrupt on me. So I don't know if I'm fortunate, but
I think you're
um,
fortunate. I think they can damage. It just depends on how they're stored. Heat can make a difference with those too.
yeah, yeah, no, you have to store them properly, right? You have to keep them in, a regular controlled environment.
I know
But
we're
for
getting
most
way
offices,
I know we're
yeah.
getting way off topic, but so does anybody? We lost a few people here, and by the way, we are recording this because a lot of people that don't make it always go back and watch the recording. So we put out the recordings and we post them up and share them out on the channel afterwards. Does anybody have any questions in pertaining to your business? I saw that we have a realtor here earlier. I know that we've got some other people that do some other things. Does anybody here have any questions about about some of what we presented today and how it pertains to your business? Feel free to unmute yourself if you want.
This is Scott. How do you guys feel about cloud services like Google or OneDrive for Microsoft?
I as a Microsoft partner, we do a ton of stuff with OneDrive now. A lot of people don't realize that SharePoint now powers OneDrive. This is something they did a few years back, and it's fully integrated with Teams now. It's a full document management system. So in other words, you can do revision history. You can do a lot of things. And if it includes a light version of Azure that is basically it's a lightweight Active Directory server, so you can set permissions up for who has permission to do what. It's actually a great platform. And what I like is that, like, for instance, we have an integrated backup system to that does cloud to cloud backup that is in its persistent storage, so it's hacker proof. What I like, it goes in every day, grabs incrementals, but it doesn't rely on a person's machine being up. It doesn't rely on a server being up. It just ties into Microsoft's cloud through OAuth 2. It has a a qualified authenticated login it goes into that has access to those things, and it snapshots everything that changes on a daily basis. It can grab mailboxes, it can grab everything that's in the OneDrive system, it can grab anything inside of Microsoft 365. And that's nice because it basically is, you don't have to worry about your backups. You don't have to, and a lot of people don't understand that these are services they're getting with their Office 365 subscription already. They just aren't using it. I can't tell you how many people we talk to that have got Office 365 subscriptions so they can have the software, but don't realize that they have they have a terabyte of cloud storage through SharePoint for their company, where they could set up a file server for their company, a cloud-based file server with full on, I mean, basically redundancy and versioning and everything, a professional document versioning system. That each user has a terabyte of personal storage with that account that they can actually use to back up their personal folders on their system. There's actually some decent ransomware built into Windows itself, some ransomware protection in the base security settings in Windows 11 that you can check, and it will prevent your personal folders from being written into or in other words, anything writing into them or trying to change them without authorization. and it works pretty well. And that's built into the system. And when you turn that on, integrated with OneDrive, OneDrive is the only thing authorized to copy that stuff out at that time. You have to give anything else permission to get in there, and it will alert you when things try to go in there. So it actually does a really good job. What most people don't realize is that the software, the endpoint protection, is not where people are getting caught. In other words, 94% of hackers are getting right past, no matter what you use, they're getting past it because that's not how they get to people. And this is something we've been teaching people for a long time. How hackers get into people is they hack people. It's called social engineering. The phishing is not responsible for 9 out of 10 hacks worldwide. 9 out of 10. They're getting to people through email, through phishing emails, clickbait, other things that are presenting themselves as something they aren't. And then the users are falling for it because they either aren't paying attention or they don't know any better. Whatever the reason, they're falling for it and they're giving their credentials to the hackers, not knowingly. And then the hacker just takes their credentials and starts hitting all their systems. And if you got somebody who's using the same password and email combination on multiple systems, they just got into everything. They could get into your banks, they could get into your account, your YouTube, they could get into your social media accounts, your email, anything. That's why we teach people about proper password management, not using the same passwords for financial accounts that they use for email, same ones for email that they use for like video services and things like that. Change them up. Don't use the same things. The reason is because when you do, you are more vulnerable to having everything locked out. And we've seen this happen to a lot of people. Ernest can tell you, we've seen lots of people have their lives turned upside down because they use very simple passwords and they have the same password for everything. So once they fall for one of these phishing schemes, the first thing these guys do is put that information into a program that then hits all these services within seconds and they own you at that point. You've just given your life away. And that happens more often than you would suspect.
And one other thing to add there is, first of all, the cloud is the place for running your business, because in the event that you wind up dislocated, you can get back to your stuff. The other thing is, when you look at a lot of the social engineering, the phishing, what they're doing now is they're sending you fake invoices and things like that, hoping you'll click on it so that you can complain about it. And it actually launches them into a remote session on your system. So they're running there dark. You don't see them, you can't tell. They're watching for the different accounts you have. Maybe you walk away from your machine and you just set it to whatever, and it's still on. They'll go in and they'll start looking around, and they're looking to collect as much information as they possibly can, bank accounts, things like that.
Yeah.
So be aware of that. I will say I like the Microsoft 365. The other thing that'll be a real eye opener if you are using Microsoft 365 is, you can, first of all, you should always have multi-factor authentication set up.
Absolutely.
Secondarily, you can go in and take a look at any breaches. They will send you a dark web report that you can take a look at to see what information of yours has been exposed in the dark web, whether it's your social, whether it's passwords. They also enforce now, I believe it's 30 days. I know it's at least 70, but they force you to change your password on Microsoft 365 now every at least 70 days. They said they were going to 30 so that they can stop a lot of this, phishing and freaking and all kinds of hacker games.
There's new tools too to report. Like in Outlook, there didn't used to be a place to report phishing. You could report junk, but you couldn't report phishing. And now the new version of Outlook, what's really nice about it is you have the ability to report phishing directly to Microsoft right out of Outlook, which is wonderful. So those of you that haven't upgraded to the latest version, I would definitely do it. There's some new features in there. I happen to think it does better, especially if you have larger mailboxes. A lot of email like myself, where I'm managing a ton of email. But the thing I love is that on an individual level, you could be in an email and see that it's obviously phishing, and you can go right up to the top and say, report that as phishing. And it takes it out of your inbox. It'll put it on your block list and it reports it to Microsoft. So now Microsoft's team can look at it, see where it originated and block those senders. That is huge. In our business, one of the biggest things is that nobody communicates with IT about what they're finding. Oh, I got a phishing email and you delete it. The only problem about that is you haven't told the people responsible for maintaining your security that you had got something that was a risk to your network and they don't know it. Stuff gets through. So by reporting it or having an easy way to report it back, that's one of the reasons why I like Microsoft system a lot better as well, is by reporting it back, they're able to add that information, their teams, to their filters, to their mail system, and they're able to start using that intelligence to block those threat actors. And I find it works very well. So there's a lot of good tools out there now that didn't exist a year or two ago that help us, not just help you, but help us do a better job of what we do.
Yeah, and I can tell you firsthand, because I've been there, that Microsoft actually has the FBI in one of their offices looking at the threats.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they do. And they're very active. I've I've been involved with them at Microsoft up in Redmond, Washington. So you have that protection there.
Well,
That's one of the real advantages with a Microsoft
well,
system.
did you know that in cities like Houston, for instance, we have an office or a group, a user group that is a liaison to the FBI's office. There's a group of us that work with the FBI from a business standpoint, and when they get into a situation where they need help with forensics or they want some third-party consulting, or they are looking for education partners, there's a group of about 25 of us here in Houston, and we act as a liaison to the FBI. And the purpose of that is to educate, to help, to expedite reporting, to expedite forensic information that comes in and out of these events as they happen. There's a lot of good things that happens. So I remember 10 years ago when the FBI could give a crap. You call them and tell them you got a problem, they wouldn't even care. They are so much better now, and they are taking it very seriously, and they log everything. In fact, if you are breached in a way that compromises any data in your network, you're required to report it to the FBI. They actually have a kit that you register, you download, it makes them aware. They decide whether or not they need to actually involve, personnel or not. But the reason behind that is not necessarily to give you a hard time. The reason behind that is for two things. It's one, to safeguard consumers and individuals, to let them make sure that people are reporting breaches and that the people that are compromised get reported to. The second thing is so they can hold these people accountable. The reason why we're seeing more people get caught, we're seeing more people become accountable, more people go to jail, is because they are doing their job better. And when they have this accountability, they know what they've done. They now have more firepower to put these people behind bars and for longer periods of time.
Yeah, and the scope has gone wider. The other thing I want to make sure people realize is that even though you have Microsoft and you're using Windows and you're using 365, that is not a full security solution.
No.
A lot of other things can attack you, different applications that you may use online. Like a lot of the major applications that people use, whether it's an SAP or whether it's another financial accounting package, the attackers are always trying to attack them so they can get information other ways. So let's say you have QuickBook online. They're looking to see if they can guess your password and information from stuff they've gotten from the dark web.
Yeah.
So it's really good to have other solutions or another solution in place that will allow for you to be alerted that something unusual is happening somewhere else or somewhere in the stream of your connectivity, because it goes from your laptop to your router to the internet to the router to wherever you're going to, and then into their application. So if somewhere along the line something is breached, you want to know about it. And there are other solutions out there. Maybe, Robert, you can share some of that with them.
Yeah, it's a network. People don't realize that the internet is just a network of machines. And I give you a good instance. Comcast here in Houston, or Xfinity as they're known, um, when they don't they don't peer well with outside contractors here in Houston. So basically, all the traffic for anybody who can use Xfinity to connect from home, if you're connecting with something else that's on another network like AT&T or Phonoscope or some other provider that's providing Sprint, whoever it might be, they actually send all that traffic to Dallas and then back down to Houston. So it's not just going from Houston to Houston. It actually hits 6, 7 different places before it even gets to it, even though you're in the same city. And that's just the way they peer traffic. It's the way the internet is put together. A lot of people don't realize that there are hops you go to, and each one of those is a point in which can be compromised. There's one thing I want to touch on before I go into that, and that was that be very careful about public Wi-Fi. There was a really good demonstration somebody put on. They went to an airport, and it was, I forget what city it was in, but it was one of the major cities. It was Chicago or Indiana or something like that. It was up in that area. And what they did is they brought a couple of little pie machines with some cards on it, and they put up literally a dozen Wi-Fi networks that look just like the airport public Wi-Fi, and they look like free Wi-Fi. And literally within 15 minutes, there were over 100 people connected to these various networks. And keep on, this was something a hacker put up and was routing he was routing stuff through. It was getting through the internet, but these were hacker controlled access points, which means they see every single bit of data that goes across that network. And there was over 100 people connected to them in 10, 15 minutes. And we're just using it, connecting to email, whatever they were getting to. And he was capturing all that traffic, everything. That people are way too lax when it comes to what they connect to in public places. Me personally, if I'm in a public place, I'm using a VPN. If it's a network I don't trust. But for me personally, what I do is I turn on data on my phone. Okay. If I need a public Wi-Fi and I got a choice between using my phone as a hotspot and using something else I don't know, I'm going to use my phone every day of the week because this is my device. I know I control what goes in and out of it. And I have it locked down to just my devices, not just by password, but I can lock it down and see what devices are connected to it. So the whole point that I'm sharing with this is don't think for a second, just because it's out in the open and it's in an airport or it's in a Starbucks or wherever it is, that it is legitimate. Okay? Assume everything. People need to be exercising zero trust more. And that means assume everything is not secure, and do your best to be as secure as possible in how you think and how you access things. VPN isn't always the answer. In fact, Nord's been compromised. Several VPNs have. But Nord's a good example. As far as a lot of VPNs are out there, Proton, Nord, these are good services. And for the most part, they do a good job of protecting what's there. And if you got to work on a network that is not one you are sure of, not one you trust or have used before, by all means, use a VPN. Protect what's going in and out through that, so where a normal hacker just can't see it. That way, if you do connect to something that a hacker's using, inside the VPN, at least, he'll have to deal with some encryption that even if it captures it, he would have to deal with encryption and probably isn't going to mess with it. He's going to go after the low-hanging fruit. That stuff that people are putting in are easier to capture. What do you think? Do you have any thoughts on that, Ernest?
No, I agree. My concern around VPNs is the other side. Okay. So like when I worked for companies, we had a VPN. We knew that if I was working from home, or if I was working from a client's location and I connected through VPN back to the home site, everything was secure. The problem is when you're connecting through VPN and you think you're going to some common website and you're thinking the VPN can protect you. It can't
No.
really, because the endpoint on the other side is not secured.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, I like VPNs, and there's OpenVPN. I used that for years, but I've always used it in a trusted manner, right?
Yes.
I knew where I am and I knew where I was going.
Yeah.
If you don't really know where you're going,
Yeah. That has to do with what information you're accessing. What he's talking about, VPNs do nothing. Yeah, if you listen to the Nord's commercials or some of these people from LifeLock, they act like a VPN is going to protect you from hackers. It's nothing farther from the truth. You hit a malicious website or you get into phishing, get into something, it's still going to do the same thing to your browser. The only thing it does is protect the traffic in transit, but it doesn't stop you from having something malicious get to you through a browser still. And this is something a lot of people don't understand. The actions that you take through phishing, through clickbait and things like that, those are actions that you are initiating on your side. So you are okaying those actions by initiating them. And all a VPN does is encrypt the traffic to where somebody outside that connection can't see what's going on, but it can't stop you from making bad choices. So anyway, that's all I've got for today. I wanted to share that because I thought that study that came out on the small business data that came out earlier this week was really good. It had some really good data about what was happening. And I liked that it was specifically talking about smaller businesses, which, that's what here we are here on Alignable. And unfortunately, a lot of the data we get is, on bigger companies, so in bigger events. But it's nice to see some of the data on the smaller stuff too. Anybody have any questions or anything before we wrap up? We're at 3 o'clock. Scott, I hope that answered your question a little bit on Office 365. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Oh, it actually just made me feel a lot better because that's kind of how I built it out. I just, validated, what I was thinking originally, but it also gave me some pointers as far as some things I could also pick up along the way to make it even better.
Every one of my clients is built around Office 365 and Microsoft 365 at some point, and I get them out. Google is okay. For personal reasons, for businesses. Here's the problem I have with Google, and specifically on the email side. Google does not separate their email servers from their free to their paid accounts. It shares the same server farms. So that means you're sharing the same server farms with every spammer and every hacker out there using a Gmail account. If you have issues, we've seen lots of clients with issues with delivery into systems because of this and things like that, where Microsoft 365, when we move them into that platform, all that disappears. And it's because they do not mix their paid and their free platforms, are not part of the same thing.
Good deal. Thank you.
No, I'm glad I was able to answer that for you. Does anybody else have anything before we draw? Gazelle, see your mic's you're unmuted. You got a question?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm not just a small business, I'm a mini business.
Okay.
I used to be in business, but for the last 20 years, I've been an author. I've been writing books.
Mm-hmm.
And naturally, I have to be on social media a lot in order to promote or answer questions. Now, what happened in especially the last few months, that people, I have 269 or 297 or something friends on Facebook. Occasionally, and not just once a week, one of these people appear on my messenger and say, "How are you?" Now, whenever I see this, "How are you?" I just delete it. I don't even answer anymore because they try to get all kinds of information. And when I go to their real Facebook site, they say, "No, I didn't send you anything." So they have a double.
So there's a couple things you can do. One, you should lock down your Facebook account to make sure that your information is only visible to friends and not friends of friends. Okay. What that means is only the people that are actually you have approved are able actually to see your information. By default, it is not that way. By default, it's wide open. That means that everybody who is their friend, that could be legitimate or non-legitimate, can see your information as well. So I would go in and make sure your settings are set that where only your friends, the people you have accepted, can see, and not friends of friends. The second thing is, even as an author, I would also make sure that you, if you see invites, and this is what's happening, is they're cloning, they're taking information that looks very similar. This happens, my aunt is an author as well. She's a Christian author. And she has the same. She has a Facebook account. She uses that as a way for the face of the book, but she gets a lot of the same problem. And what she sees is people taking and duplicating the account. They come on with the same name, the same picture, but these people are already their friends, and they're sending her invites to actually become a friend again. When you see those things, report them. Okay, 9 times out of 10, and I say 9 out of 10. Seriously, it's usually 10 out of 10, but 9 out of 10 on average are illegitimate. What these are is somebody is cloning the information, setting up an account to look like them, and because these people have not locked down their accounts and their friends lists are showing, they are hitting up all their friends with those invites. And they're just thinking, oh, that's, them just re-inviting me. Maybe something changed, and they go ahead and accept it because they don't know any better. So you're doing the right thing by deleting it, but also report it. There's a place to report those in the same place where you can block and report at the same time. And I would highly suggest you do that. That will send it into a different department of Facebook, and they will actually look and remove those accounts.
Okay. Well, then there's another thing. Every day I get about 2, sometimes 3 requests from good-looking men to become my friends. And
yeah, that's we get it as men, we get it on the women's side too. Trust me, I just had that happen on a Lineable. Lineable had an instance where a bunch of young women were coming in, and they were pictures saying they were everything from aerospace engineers to things. Yeah, I kid you not. And they acknowledged they were being attacked by a Russian group. Sent thousands of invites out, created thousands of accounts, and they had to deal with it. So if you saw things like that happen it happens to this is something social media has to contend with. And unfortunately, these hackers are very good at what they do. They write scripts, they create these accounts, they just put generic pictures in there, and they do that. Just ignore them and report them. That's about the best you can do, because until they can get better systems of verification on these new accounts when they're started, this will continually be a problem. It is very easy for hackers to create a fake phone number, put up for $1 or less, they can put up a working phone number on a VoIP line and, have text and voice to it, and use that with a free email account from Gmail or something. And then they can turn around and use those two things to make themselves look legitimate. That happens all the time. And unfortunately, it's something that all I can tell you is get in the habit of deleting it and reporting it. And that's about the best you can do with it.
Okay.
Well, you can also ignore them. The other thing you want to make sure is that your phone number is not showing up on your Facebook account.
Yep, on the privacy
I'm
part.
older, and I
Never.
have friends that are older than me, and their accounts were hacked and compromised. Most of the time it's women that get compromised, and those people actually had to have their phone number changed, and they had to get, a couple of them didn't even get new Facebook accounts. They said, I don't
He's
want any
talking
parts
about your
of this.
privacy settings. Ernest talking
Yeah.
about privacy settings. Make sure those things are not shown by default. And I wouldn't even make it to where your phone number is published to even friends. That is something that you should provide on a person by person basis. It shouldn't just be published.
Yeah, I never do that, and I also do not advertise my email address or anything.
Yep.
They just go by the name.
Yeah. But when they get into the messenger, that's when they can start to, at least try to social engineer you.
Yep.
So if you just block all the invites, if you don't know somebody, ignore all the invites.
I just delete them. Occasionally, I have, when somebody looks too good to be true, I know it is, and if I check their Facebook, all they have is maybe 3 or 4 or 6 other women on there, and I said,
Yeah.
do you think?
Just
and
right.
To myself,
don't waste your time.
A collector item, that you can have on your Facebook. No way.
Well, they're fishing for money, and they've been pretty successful. Every day I read another story where they've hit somebody for thousands of dollars, and a lot of it is older women, and especially on dating sites. Dating sites are the worst because they reach out and they pull on the heartstrings, Right.
Gazelle, in 2010, I was a widower. I lost a wife to cancer. And 2 years after that, I remarried a black widow, somebody who used eHarmony to get in my life, and her entire background was fabricated.
Uh-huh.
So there
Yeah.
are evil people out there.
Yes, there are.
And I can tell you, it cost me 6 figures to get that person out of my life, and they almost killed me. They were poisoning me with oleander leaves out of my own backyard.
Oh my God.
So yeah, if somebody told me, "Yeah, you got to write a book about that," it's like, no, I don't have any interest in reliving that. But uh, yeah, but I can tell you that there are a lot of people that take advantage of other people, and they really don't care. They just all they're about is money, and unfortunately, that is the nature of the beast. It is they don't care about how big, how small, whatever. They will take you for whatever you got, and the more they get, the prouder they are of themselves. So that's the only thing that matters. And it's unfortunate, but that's what it is.
Well, the good thing is I'm way too old to look for something. Besides, I'm married.
No, but if you have money, that's the target.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that's what I mean, I get all kinds of fraudulent things. I get fake job offers through text messages on my phone.
Oh my God, yes.
Right. I mean, I get all kinds of fake, hey, how are you on the phone? That's a
Yeah.
block, block, block.
How are
If I
you?
don't know you and I don't know your phone number, I'm not doing, and I get it on everything. I'm getting these now. The crypto creeps are out there from South America, right? Because their numbers start like +33, right? And they're going to make you rich, but you got to give them $1 million to make you rich.
For,
Yes.
for entertainment purposes, I'm going to find this guy on this next one. I'm going to find this guy from TED, and I love this guy to death. I believe he's a guy from the UK, and he actually would engage the ones that used to send out the letters via email and says, I'm the prince of so and so country, or I'm the attaché to them, and I need to move $10 million in gold, and I want you to help me. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I know
that
that.
was the big deal. He would engage them and actually carry on conversations with them on purpose to see how far he could take it before they caught on. And I will tell you, I have never laughed so hard in my life. So,
I have a friend who does that kind of thing, and she says that's the best jokes that I play on them until they hang up.
I mean, you have to be very careful. These people are using their sandbox machines when they're talking to them just to protect themselves. And in our industry, when we're talking or dealing anything with anything illegitimate that could be a possible threat actor, we're doing that inside what we call sandboxes. So they're fake systems that are put up within an isolated environment. So if they do hurt something, it really doesn't hurt anything. It just hurts a fake machine.
Yeah.
We have to do that because it's the only way we can really sometimes exploit and draw people out to see what they're after. But that's part of our job. Part of our job is to figure out what they're really after and to stop and to hopefully stop them from doing it. But most of our job is about protecting people from idiots like that.
Yeah. It's also telephone calls on our landline, and they fished for your name. They said, "Are
Oh.
you so and so?" If you say yeah or yes, well, they got you. So
But
we
Right.
the
Yeah.
warm never say yes.
one of the big ones going on right now is SMS for the postal service. So, or from UPS, you'll get a text message on your phone. It says, "We
Yes.
have a package here that's undeliverable," and it'll pretend to be the U.S. Postal Service or UPS or FedEx, and
Yes.
they'll have a link that they want you to click on to go verify your delivery information.
Yes.
All that
Exactly.
is that they do not do that. The post office doesn't do that. The FedEx doesn't do that. They do have services that do that, but you have to knowingly sign up for that. It's not something they just do out of the blue. And what I tell people is if you're not sure, exercise zero trust. Go log into the website, call the legitimate place, go to the legitimate source. Don't trust what's being sent to you because 9 times out of 10, what's being sent to you is bogus.
Mhm.
Well, and then now they're focusing on voting fraud because I am a mail-in voter, and I got some texts from these numbers saying, "Oh, we see that you haven't registered for your mail-in, right?
Mhm.
And go to this website." So I took apart the website, because there's a code on the end of it. So I took the code off and I went to the site. And here it's one of those sites like a VeriSign where I can send stuff through to people and you don't know who I am. So I contacted first of all, the state of Florida to let them know this is going on. I don't know if they care or if they got too much of it, but I contacted my county and said to them, "Hey, I got a message that I'm not registered to vote, mail in." They said, "No, you're there. Everything's perfect. You're fine."
Yep.
So this is a new game. They want to steal my information so that they can vote for me.
With these electronic systems, like they're just discovering that in 2020, a lot of the voter fraud that they thought they tried to dismiss and say wasn't happening.
I know.
They're finding out both, I think, Las Vegas, Nevada, or New Mexico, and I think even up as far as Minnesota. There were 3 that I know of for sure that where the local sheriffs were checking in, they found mail-in ballots that had never been cast. They found in tons of stuff, and they found evidence, both physical and electronic evidence, that they were actually hiring groups out of Siberia to pose as voters. And they were manipulating the electronic system. And so a lot of the things that, so funny, a lot of the things that, you know, the guy that had the mattress, I'm forgetting, I'm trying to remember.
Yeah,
You know,
Mr. Pillow.
Tucker Carlson and those guys got fired because basically Fox got sued by the company that makes the voting machines, saying that, you know, we didn't commit voter fraud and this didn't happen and we were, you know, and they won. But now they're coming back to find out that, in fact, there was voter fraud and their systems were manipulated. And I'm sure Tucker probably doesn't care at this point. He's, you know, out on his own doing his good. He's just as popular as he was back when he was on Fox. But the fact is that, you know, the truth always comes out in the end in our business, and it isn't always relevant. It's kind of like the Hunter laptop deal. A lot of us in the business know that, you know, this was obviously a legitimate thing. And the fact that some of 52 high-end people who would give a crap about whether this laptop was really real or not, the only way they'd even get involved is if a politician asked them to. So the fact is, in our industry, that stuff doesn't happen unless it's really illegitimate and they're trying to pass it off as something it isn't. So, you know, just the fact that that happened alone led so much credibility to the fact that it was real. It wasn't even funny. What you find in our businesses is that the things that people try to draw attention from or disprove as real are usually real.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
It is, but it's the truth. I mean, it's so hard to remember a time when that was wrong. But anyway, listen, I know we've gone over. Thanks for hanging in there, the few, Gazelle and Francine. I see you're here too. And did you have any questions, Francine? You've been very quiet. And you are muted if you are trying to answer, so you do need to unmute yourself.
No, I'm okay. I don't have any question. It was very informative. I'm looking to help a friend wanting to open a business locally. So it's just general good information that I need to keep in mind as I help her through the process. But I didn't have any.
You could use the free training.
question.
Yeah.
Yes.
We do a ton of stuff for startups. So if you want to, how did you find us? Through Alignable on the group?
Yeah, through Alignable on the group. Yeah.
Just send me a message on the group. I'll post the recording to the video in the next couple of days, but send me a private message on the group. We'll be happy to talk with your friend as you guys get to a point. But where we're a little different is we specialize in what we call micro business, the home business, the small
Yeah,
guys.
she's a small business. She would definitely
Well,
be.
we specialize in that because you guys need the same tools that the big guys use, and that's what we do.
Definitely. Yeah, I used to work for insurance services in large industry and financial industry. So I'm always kind of attuned to safety.
They have a lot more money to spend on this stuff than the little guy.
Yeah, they definitely do. But I'm sort of wired to pay attention to these things. That's why even though I'm helping her on a different level, that kind of caught my attention when I got the thing on Reliable. And I thought, you know what, let me go in and listen.
Well, we do this every 2 weeks. We got another one on on the 23rd. In fact, I'm going to be out of town, Ernest, and I may ask you to host that one for me. I'll send you the slides on it, but I am going to be out from the 12th to the 23rd. So I'll get with you via phone and make sure I got you everything. But if you wouldn't mind hosting that for me, I'm going to be on the road that day. So I will not be anywhere where I can actually do it.
Not a problem. And you should tell Francine about the free training so her and her associate can get that.
We have a link to some free training. We have a section for families and we have a section for businesses. And We actually have some new stuff that is professionally created by a company we actually pay for outside of the stuff that I did, which is these are recreations of sessions we did for other people that we did training sessions for. So we put it on video on demand. I will put the link to it. Let me pull the link up real quick to
Okay.
this, and I will post it in the chat for you. Okay.
Yeah, actually, that's the best way because I can just screenshot the chat.
Yep. I'm going to do that right now. Let me just get that up.
And the real advantage to that, Francine, is if you have any organizations that you got to show compliance for, you get
Mhm.
a certificate. So you can
Okay.
show them the certificate so that they will understand that you are in compliance
On
with
the
security.
training. Okay, that's good
Yep.
to know. Thank you.
Yep.
This is one of my companies, AIO Integrations, my main one, and we focus on small business there. But if you want to learn, we cover businesses that are just one person, and up to we have companies that are 100 or 200 people. So we really try to focus, like our average company size is less than 20 though. So we
Okay.
focus on small guys.
Okay, yeah, that would definitely qualify.
Yep, and Gazelle, we do work with riders too. So if you're looking to just send me a direct message if you want to have, like, we do a little demo and do a little peek behind the curtains for what we do. We've got an incredible threat management system. We have the only product that includes cybersecurity insurance in our product. For if you have a business like a DBA or a actual business, we include $1 million in cybersecurity coverage in our product. So very cool.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
You all
Very
have a great
enlightening.
day, and thanks for coming, and we appreciate your time and your input. Ernest, I'll get with you before in the next few days on that before I leave, okay?
Perfect.
All right, thanks, buddy. Appreciate you. Have a great day, everybody.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Robert with AIO Integrations. We provide top-of-the-line cybersecurity solutions. Don't be fooled. There are numerous digital threats that can destroy your company's ability to do business. Hacks, ransomware, employee error, and nefarious actors can take your business down. For some reason, people have been sold the myth that antivirus protects them from hackers. Nothing could be further from the truth. The fact is that hackers don't hack networks in small business, they hack people. And then they infiltrate and do what they need to do after they have already gained access through people. But people are their first and most reliable way to get into your business. AIO CyberGuard not only protects your business by monitoring it 24/7 for threats and protecting your endpoints, but we train your employees on how to recognize those threats very easily, and we protect your business with a $1 million financial protection plan. You need to ensure that your business stays in business. We make sure that it does.